So I have the distinguished pleasure in introducing you to your keynote speaker. This person is my boss, my mentor, and my friend. And I don't think I could be any more grateful to be able to introduce to you someone who I can truly say is a dear friend and yet still in charge of my job. Professor Ciocchetti has been teaching here for over 7 years, and I've never been so inspired by someone who is so truly committed to his students. Last year when I started teaching here at Daniels, he gave me his course syllabus and he led the way for me. And we started an activity in which we would go out to dinner with our students. So 3 or 4 times throughout the quarter, we took our students and we went to dinner with them. We didn't buy them dinner. We just went out to dinner with them. And I've never seen so many students turn out on a volunteer basis to just spend time with their professor. That inspires me, and that inspires me to be a better professor myself. And so he's going to talk to you about inspiring integrity. And this is someone who not only has an amazing message to give to you, but he lives this every day. He's committed to what he says. This is someone who is an example of what he is teaching and practicing. So it's my great pleasure to introduce to you to Professor Ciocchetti, who is the pioneering mind behind this event. Will you please give him a round of applause?
That's so nice. She's going to make me cry. This room, you all are pretty good looking. I like to look around my rooms to see if my audiences are good looking or ugly. Y'all are pretty good looking. Here's why I say that. There was a newspaper article 3 years ago, and it said that 1 out of every 3 Americans is ugly. And I thought, that can't be true. Well, let's see. Look to your left. Is that person good looking? All right. Then I need you to look to your right. Is that person good looking? If they're both good looking, then the ugly one is you. Let me tell you a little bit about why we're doing this ethics boot camp and a little bit about my life because it's sort of relevant. I guess when I sat in chairs just like this, I remember being your age, and I went to school here before we had all these pretty buildings. So I guess I helped pay for them, right, with my tuition. This campus looked nothing like it did, but I was proud to be at DU. It was the only school I got into. When I was in high school, my guidance counselor said to me, "I don't think college is for you." She said, "You might want to go work at a gas station." And I thought, really? When your high school guidance counselor says that to you, you're like, yeah, maybe I should. It's the only school I got into. It's so much harder to get in here now, but I'm just indebted to this place tremendously. But I sat in seats just like this, and I would listen to my professors or whatever that was, and there were some things I liked. I liked history, and I liked political science, and I liked business, but in my mind, what I really wanted was to be rich. And I don't know why. I just thought if I could be rich, that would solve all my problems, and I could have a really nice car and a big house, and everything would work itself out. So I was a business major, and that was good. And then my friends were going to law school, right? And I thought, man, if I could just go to law school, I could be rich. If one of you came up to me and said that, Professor C, I want to go to law school to be rich, you slap that person. That's a terrible reason to make that decision. You don't go to law school for those reasons. You don't go to any school for those reasons, but no one slapped me. So I go to Duke. I graduate, and I'm $120,000 in debt. Think about that. That's my student loan debt, and I had a little bit from DU, right? So now I really need to make a lot of money. So I'm coming back to interview at different jobs, and I wanted to move back to Denver. First law firm I went to, I asked a question you're never supposed to ask in an interview, so don't ask this. I don't care if you're applying to be a lifeguard, don't ask this. I said, how much do you pay? Don't say that, right? They'll tell you when you get the offer. The first lady looked back at me at the first law firm and said, $80,000 a year. And to myself, I thought, that's not enough. Think about that. Next place, they said $100,000 a year. Third place said 120, and I thought, now we're talking, 120. That's big money. That's $10,000 a month, and doesn't matter how old you are, that's a lot of money, right? I'm 26. But during my interview, a guy came up to me in the hall. We were walking from office to office. This guy comes up to me, puts his arm around me, goes, hey, you're Corey, right? You're the guy from Duke, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, my name's Scott, and I went to Duke too. He goes, listen, man, put his arm around me, goes, don't come here. This place sucks. Then he ran down the hall. That was it. Never saw him again. That was it. He wasn't on the team, right? He wasn't on the official interview team. You probably can tell why. I thought, he's crazy. What do you mean? Because I was thinking about what I would buy with my first paycheck. And that's what you're thinking, right, when you graduate. What am I going to do with that first check? And I'm thinking BMW, right? Big house. All right, took the job. So I had been there for 6 months. And I had spent 5 straight nights sleeping on my office floor, which felt just like this. We were doing a $200 million IPO. You know what that is, right? Initial public offering. So this company was issuing stock, and the CEO was there. Late at night, the CFO, the accountants, all the lawyers. I mean, if those people are there, I'm there. I'm the low man on the totem pole, right? But I'm not really sleeping. We're working. Well, that'll take years off your life, 5 straight nights. So I was walking around the halls of the building just to see, because you can't work all night, right? And I'm looking in these partners' offices. These are the senior partners, the people I had aspired to be like, right? And they're in their office working at 3, 4 in the morning, and I thought to myself, these people have families. These people have spouses and kids, and they never see their kids because, see, at my law firm, we did a deal like that every single week. So I was on one, and then the next team would go on, and I'd pick up the other one, and I thought, I don't want to do this with my life. So I called my wife. She's here, babe. You might as well smile. I'm going to pick on you. Isn't she cute? So I said, honey, I hate this job. I need to quit. And she goes, I didn't marry a quitter. I was like, damn. That's the wrong answer. I didn't want her to say that. She said, you have all this debt, and you went to 7 years of higher education for this. You can't quit. I said, let's compromise. And she goes, okay. She goes, let's compromise. When do you want to quit? And I said, tomorrow. She said, I'd like you to stay for 6 months. I'm like, okay, let's compromise. So we ended up compromising, and I stayed for 6 months. Guys, you understand how that's about to work, right? When you get married, that's how that goes, right? That's a compromise in a marriage. So I stayed for 6 more months. The year anniversary of my start date, I walked into the senior partner's office, knocked on his door. I said, Mark, can I talk to you? He goes, yeah. What's up, Corey? I said, hey, man, I hate this job. I want to quit. He looked right back at me and said, no, seriously, what's up? I'm like, wait, what do you mean? I'm going to quit. He goes, Corey, nobody quits. I said, Mark, everybody here is miserable. He looks right back at me and goes, well, that's right. I'm like, and? He said, nobody quits. I said, Mark, everybody here is on their 5th marriage. I'm not making this up. He looks right back at me and goes, well, you're right about that too. I'm like, and? He said, you're not listening. Nobody quits. They want to quit, but those are 2 different things. He said, everybody at this law firm is living far above their means. I said, they make 6 figures a year. He looked back at me and said, what does that matter? And isn't that a true statement? Isn't that the state of our country? No matter how much money people make, we're always spending more on things that will never make us happy. If you want to see what got us into this recession, that's what it was. We couldn't afford the stuff we've bought, but yet we aren't happy. I said, but they make 6 figures. He goes, listen, they should have bought $1 million house. They bought a $2 million house. They should have bought a BMW 3 Series. They bought a 650. They should have flown coach. They flew first class. So yeah, they want to quit, believe me, but they're broke. And I thought that was pretty sad. And the next thing was worse. He goes, you know what else it is? Everyone wants to quit, but they can't because they love to go home at Thanksgiving and say they have a better job than everyone else in their family. We do that, right? When you guys go back, what's a high school reunion all about? It's to try to one-up all your classmates. That's the only reason you go, right? Because you think your spouse is more attractive, or you make more money, or you live in a fancier house or have a better job. He said, so they want to quit, but they're tied into that prestige. And I said, well, Mark, that's not me, man. And I walked out of the door. So 3 years later, University of Denver calls me. They knew I wanted to adjunct to class. That's how you kind of start. You adjunct to class. They said, Corey, listen, we got some good news. Someone died in the ethics department. I'm like, what do you mean, a student died? They said, no, this professor died. He was 70 years old, and he had taught for however many years, and he died. And you're thinking about your professors right now, like some of them are close, right? I guess bad for him, good for me. That's how good of a job Professor Holt, Professor Shaughnessy, Professor Elias, we have such a good job, someone has to die for there to be an opening, right? They said, do you want to apply for this job? And again, I'm 28 years old, right? This guy gave me a really good piece of advice. He said, turn your resume in, because how will you ever know unless you try? And this will happen to you in your life. I promise you this will happen. You'll have a job you really want, and you think you won't get it, right? But how will you know? So every time I put my resume in, right, and I kept making it to the next interview, and I thought, man, surely I'll get cut here. And next thing I know, I'm meeting with the dean. Okay, well, I'm never going to get picked now. Next thing I know, I'm meeting with the provost, right? And I got the job. Like 400 people, whatever, applied for this job, and I end up getting it. So I tell you that story for 2 reasons, and don't ever forget this. Number 1, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. You've all heard that, right? Have you thought of the opposite of that statement, which is this? If you hate what you do for a living, every day sucks. Raise your hand if you know someone who hates his or her job. I just really hope that when you walk out of these doors, that isn't you. But how will you ever know if you've never identified your passion? Reason number 500 you're at this boot camp. Just to sit down and ask yourself, what am I good at? What am I passionate about, right? I love my job, guys. I love this job. I haven't slept probably in a week, but we've been preparing for this, and I've been traveling all over the country. This isn't work. I've been looking forward to this for so long. If you're in my class, you're like, yeah, man, you won't stop talking about it, right? This isn't work for me. I love this. I would stay here. Whenever you guys needed me, I would be here for you. At my law firm, it was like I looked at my watch, and I was hoping it was noon, and it was 9:15. Have you ever done that? Don't do that in my class, right? I would look at my watch, and I would hope it'd be 10, and it would be 9:30. It's one of those jobs, and it just sucked. Now, if any of you are budding lawyers or you want to go to law school, let me not discourage you. Law school was the best thing I ever did. I just chose the wrong job on the way out. Second reason I tell you the story is now I land in the ethics department. But we've established that I went to law school, right? When you think lawyer, do you think ethics? Not really. We had a class. Who said that really loud? Right on. So we had a class in law school. It was legal ethics, and we sat in a room just like this. They said, take notes. This is very important information. So I was one of those students, man. I was ready to take notes, They said, number 1, don't have sex with your clients. I'm sitting there like, check. Right? Check. Rule number 2. You can represent your client if you know he's guilty, but you can't call him to the witness stand. And I'm like, all right, check. Can you email me this list? Because everything they kept telling me, I'm thinking, I get it, right? Okay, fine. My wife went to medical school, sat in a room just like this, medical ethics class, right? They said, sit down, it's very important, write this down. They said, don't have sex with your patients. Check, right? Honey, check? Yeah, good. That's a prerequisite to the marriage, right? Check. Don't cut off the wrong leg during a surgery. Check, babe? Right, check. I'm thinking, I can't with a straight face walk into a bunch of sophomores and talk to them about that. To me, I already understood that. Now, there are plenty of lawyers who are bad, plenty of business people who are bad. Sharon Watkins spoke after me on Wednesday. Do you know who that is? The whistleblower at Enron. She spoke right after me. You know what she called it? She said these business executives have steered their companies into a blaze of disgrace. So there are plenty of people who don't get it. But I thought, let's talk about this different. And I think we're different here at DU than places all across the country. Because at other schools, they think this stuff is fluff. Ethics boot camp, it's fluff. It's not hard philosophy, right? But I disagree. I care about who you are as a person. I care a lot about that. I care about your character and your integrity. And to me, if you have that straight, you'll never embezzle money from a client. You'll never steer your company to a blaze of disgrace. But the problem is, we tend to think we have character, but when the rubber meets the road, we can't even define the word. Let me give you an example. I used to ask my audiences this question, and I stopped asking them because I was just sickened by the answer. Let's say I had a room of 1,000 people, so 5 times this size. And I would always say this. Don't do this, just listen. I would say, raise your hand, 1,000 people, if you think you're a person of high character. How many hands would go up? All of them. 1,000 every single time. And I'm like, that's good, right on. Keep your hand up if you can define that word, character. And how many hands went down? All of them. And that's not good, right? So I would say to them, well, that's not good, people. Let's try a different word, integrity. 1,000 people, raise your hand if you're a person of integrity. And how many hands would go up? 1,000. It's like short-term memory loss. It's like a game of Jeopardy you can't lose, right? Okay, define integrity for me. And every single hand would go down. I guess my question for you would be, if I pulled you aside before this speech and asked you if you were a person of character, would you say yes? And then if I asked you to define it, would you be able to? You know, Enron's core value was integrity. Global Crossing, Quest, pick any company. Their core values are integrity. It's useless. Our honor code has that word all over it, doesn't it? My class now has 2 fewer students because 2 cheated on the midterm yesterday. In my ethics class, 1 day before the ethics boot camp, there are now 2 fewer students in my class. So I don't think we get it. So let's get into it. And I'll never forget it. In this room, a man told me a story that changed my life. His name is John Bogle. He's a famous guy. He founded Vanguard Mutual Funds. I'm sure your parents know of him. And he's sitting in this room, actually right here. And the room is packed with people because we wanted to hear this guy. He's a billionaire, right? And we wanted to hear how to make money. And he sat up here front and he goes, I'm just going to tell you guys some stories. And we're sitting there like, nah, stories? I don't want to hear stories. Tell us how to make some money, man. Tell us how to get some jobs back in this economy. Told a story of a racing greyhound named Cash. You know the dogs at the dog track. This was the best one. He was the Kobe Bryant, right, of racing dogs. Dog was world famous, had broken records. And he's sitting outside with his owner, dog owner. It's a fable, clearly, right? The dog says, I don't want to run anymore. The owner looks back befuddled. Well, wait a second. This is the prime of your career. Are you hurt? Dog says, I'm not hurt. She says, do I mistreat you? Are you mad at me? I mean, right? Dog says, no. You treat me great. You always have. Are you too old? Dog says, I'm not too old, no. She said, well, then why won't you run? Dog says this, after running and running all my life, I finally realized those little white rabbits I've been chasing aren't real. And we all just sat there like, what? Has this ever happened to you? It takes you like 45 minutes to get something. That was me. So if you didn't get it, give yourself 45 minutes. I'll be done and you'll get it, right? I thought, Corey, he's talking right to me. Have you ever been in a room and someone's talking and you feel like they're talking right to you? He wasn't. But I felt like he was just talking right to me. And I said, what have I been chasing? Well, I told you I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be attractive, and I wanted to be popular. Sound familiar? Americans? That's what we want. That's what we desire, isn't it? When I'm on airplanes, I've got 120,000 miles on Delta this year. When I'm on airplanes, do you think people are catching up on newspapers? What are people reading on airplanes? Cosmo, People Magazine, Entertainment Weekly, just trash. We go home and we watch trash TV, don't we? Like Grey's Anatomy. Oops, I said it. That show is trash. That show glorifies adultery. We watch Desperate Housewives, which is also trash. Its icon is the apple from the Garden of Eden. You don't have to be a religious studies master's degree holder to know what they're trying to tell you. There's good and evil, and this show is evil. It's their apple, not mine. The Real Housewives of any stupid city. Have you noticed it's never the Real Housewives of Denver? The Real Housewives of Aurora, right? There are values in these places. It's the Real Housewives of New York, Atlanta, Miami. Well, if you followed the news, there was a suicide on the show. And a husband committed suicide allegedly because the producers of the show told his wife, if you don't keep up this drama, you're off the show. And we go home and we patronize this trash? But you know what, guys? I'm as guilty as you are. I was on the airplane, and there was a little TV on the back of the airplane, and it was on MTV when the plane took off, right? And it was Sweet 16. Have you seen this garbage? And this girl, apparently when you turn 16, you deserve a Range Rover. So this girl's like, Daddy, I got to have my Range Rover, but not that one. I want the black one. And I'm just sitting there like, her dad's like, okay. Then she had a dress budget. She wanted a dress for this party and some elephants or whatever. And so she goes, Dad, I want this dress, and it's $10,000. And her mom finally pipes in. The only time in the entire show where they said no. Her mom goes, no, your budget is $6,000. And she goes, I wish I could just shop alone. And I wanted to just punch her. But I couldn't turn the channel. I couldn't turn it off. I was riveted by this idiot, right? So does it make us bad people to watch Grey's Anatomy, to watch Sweet 16? I don't think it makes us bad people. But I guess I would say to you this. What you put into your brain tends to manifest itself in your everyday life, doesn't it? Did you know across campuses all across this country, there are people getting sexually assaulted every single week? Do you know there's marijuana and cocaine in the dorms? As you know, 60% of undergraduates have fake IDs, right? Our economy is $14 trillion in debt. Our government spends $2 trillion a year more than it brings in. Social Security is going to run out of money by 2037, right when you need it. Medicare and Medicaid is going to be broke as we know it by 2017. We have immigration and healthcare nightmares in this country. Would any of you want to run for politics under this climate? No way. And we care why Jennifer Aniston is so skinny? I guess I would say to you, with all of this on our plate, we could find some better things to do with our free time. I don't think it makes us bad people. But run through these questions in your head with me, will you? I know a lot of really rich people who are miserable. Do you? I know a ton of really attractive people who aren't happy, don't you? And I know tons of really popular people who never wake up in the morning happy, do you? So there's nothing wrong with those things. I still have my BMW that I had at my law firm. But if someone took it away from me, I would still be me. There's nothing wrong with having nice things and having money until that defines you. When money defines you, you've lost. There's nothing wrong with being attractive because every study I've ever read said that the more attractive you are, the easier it is for you to get and keep a job. It's human nature to be attracted to attractive people. Fine. If it takes you an hour and a half to get ready in the morning, that's defining you. if you change outfits 6 times, if you go to the gym so you can be stronger and more athletic than every other person, then it's defining you, and chances are you might have lost already. Same with popular. There'll always be someone with more Facebook friends than you, or however you want to define it. I keep writing Facebook and saying, you should change that to acquaintances at best. No one ever writes me back. You have 3,000 acquaintances at best, because that's what it is. Those aren't friends. So I'm listening to John Bogle. And at the end of his talk, I'm convicted, right? At the end of his talk, he said, and again, I felt like it was right to me, you can never get enough of what you don't need to make you happy. That's a profound statement, isn't it? So what will make you happy? It's not those things. I've narrowed life down to 3 things. Number 1 is a contentment in your heart. So my question for every single person sitting in this room is this. When you wake up in the morning, are you happy with your life? And you're at a stage in your life right now where you should be. It only gets harder. It only gets harder, harder, harder. But when asked that question, 60% of adult Americans answered no. They were asked, when you wake up in the morning, are you happy? And 60% answered no. Can you believe that? I've been all over the world. I've been blessed. We go all over the world. We just got back from Costa Rica. When we travel like that, my wife could kill me because I make us rent a car and we drive on all these roads and it's dangerous. But Costa Rica is the longest lasting democracy in Central America. So in Central America, Costa Rica is as good as it gets. We're driving on these roads and looking at these little shanty villages, right? And I'm thinking to myself, man, I sure am fortunate to get to wake up in America. Am I right? My Chinese students come up to me all the time. They say, Professor C, I love my country. My parents live in Beijing or Shanghai. I can't wait to get my green card. My kid's from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Dubai. I can't wait to come to America, man, and make a fresh start. We get to sit here every day and wake up here every day. So guess what I would say to you is if you're not waking up happy right now in your life, then you might be chasing some of the wrong things. I speak to inner city high school kids all the time. West High School this morning. You know what these kids said to me? Professor C, I would love to go to DU. I'll never get in. And here we sit. Here we sit. Let's take the most of this opportunity, right? Every single day, because someone would trade a seat with you in a second. The second thing I think you should chase, everybody really, are relationships. Who's heard this? In order to have friends, you have to what? You have to be one, right? So get a number in your head right now of how many friends you have. Just a number. Let me define friendship. It's someone who rushes into your life when everybody else rushes out. Now how many do you have? Worst part of my job as a college professor, the one thing I would change, and I guarantee you Professor Holt will tell you the exact same thing, is when a student comes into my office in tears. Professor C, when I was partying, everybody loved me. Gosh, when I was partying, I was the hit. Now that I'm an alcoholic, now that I'm anorexic, now that I'm a drug addict, now that I got that DUI, no one will talk to me. Then they say something that breaks my heart. And I thought I had more friends than that, man. I just look at them and I say, but you were in a fraternity. Yeah, those guys were nowhere to be seen. You were in a sorority. Yeah, then they ran as fast as they could away from me. You were in student government. Yeah, sure. See, just because you associate with a certain group doesn't make you friends. You have to nurture those relationships. Let's think about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was surrounded by hundreds of people at any given time, wasn't he? And didn't have one friend. See, if Tiger Woods had a friend, it would have gone like this, and maybe it did, we just didn't hear about it. I doubt it. Tiger, seriously, that's your plan? With a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful kids. This is your plan to commit adultery 57 million times? He was surrounded, just like you, without a friend. So be very careful that you don't fall into that trap of being surrounded and friendless. If you could find 3 or 4 people who would be there for you when no one else would, and let me tell you something about your boot camp leaders right now. We had plenty of people bail on us, and they're here. They've put hundreds of hours. Professor Holt has put hundreds of hours into this, and I found out who my friends were through this, didn't I? Because they could have just as easily bailed on me, but they're not bailing on me. They believe in you, don't they? Did you know that every single person this weekend is doing this for free? For you, because they believe in you. I believe in you, A. Part of it is selfish because this is my country, and I want it to be better. I want my kids to inherit something better than I have, right? But that's why you're here. And the last thing you should chase is contentment. Is character. Contentment, relationships, character. Let me define this for you just in case someone ever asks you to raise your hand, right? Some guy stands up here and says, raise your hand, now you can. It's how you act when no one is looking. It's how you act on Thursday night. So just think back to where you were Thursday night. That says loads about your character. Who were you with? What were you doing? Did you know that 70% of college students will cheat between freshman and senior year? 70%. See, when I give my midterms, I go to my office because it's an ethics class. And I tell my students, are you going to be one of the 7 who cheats? One of the 3 who doesn't. And I expect you to be one of the 3. Well, we can't all be, right? So I get cheating. I guess that defines your character. How do you treat your parents? How do you treat people who can't do anything for you? You should thank your leaders every single time you can. The people that empty the trash, the people that set up the video, the people that set up the audio, man. Your professors. You should walk in and say thank you. At the end of class, man, you should hit them on the back, and I'll tell you a story about that at the end. So let's get into this a little bit. I'm just going to tell you a couple of ways to develop character. I'm going to leave the contentment and the relationships for another time. Here's what I want you to do. Number 1, you have to have your priorities straight. There's a famous quote, don't ever forget this. In life, someone stands for something or falls for everything. What do you stand for? Because I think what we've done in this country is sold you something. We've sold you that college is all about drinking, and college is all about partying. And unless you stand for something, you're going to fall into that trap. But when you start to stand for something, I've had kids come up to me and say, just want you to know this, man, and it wasn't easy. I ripped up my fake ID because I'm standing for something. Now, I don't know that that's the right move for you. I'm not going to live your life for you. I'm just saying, what do you stand for, right? Well, if you have priorities, it's sort of easy. But Stephen Covey, he's the day planner guy. You know Stephen Covey, right? He'll tell you, if you write down your priorities, you're more likely to achieve them. I totally agree. But I did my own informal study. I don't have a PhD. I'm not trained to do this, but this is what I found. You're more likely to achieve your priorities if you actually have some. Am I right? So let me ask a question for you. If you don't have any priorities right now, how will you ever achieve goals and dreams? One day, one thing will matter to you, right? And the next day, something completely different will matter to you. So here's your homework. I want you to do this sometime in the next week. And if you're in my class, you already did it. I want you to make a list of priorities. On the left-hand side of one piece of paper, make a list of your top 10 priorities as your heart desires them. So just search your heart and ask yourself this question: what comes first and what comes last? Okay, and on the same piece of paper on the right-hand side, make a second list of your priorities as you currently live your life. So the last 6 months, what's really come first? What's really come last? And then connect the similar terms, right? So my guess is for a lot of you, you're thinking right now, family on the left, right? Family. And school falls somewhere on the list, right? And other things, work and friends, health. Well, I'm going to say something to you. You're looking for parallel lines, not diagonal lines. So if family doesn't come first on the right-hand side, you've lost your parallel line. You will never wake up happy if you look at that list and find a ton of diagonal lines. So what does that mean? Well, let me tell you about my life. When I was at my law firm, it was Corey, put job first or get fired. I had to quit, guys, because I was going to get fired. I was a terrible lawyer. It wasn't in my heart. On my heart priorities list, I didn't want work to come first. So I had to quit. Right now, my job comes fourth. It comes fourth on my list. Now, I still work hard, 60, 70 hours a week, but if it comes down to grading your papers or seeing a movie with her, I'm going to see a movie with her every time. No offense. I still have to grade your papers. You're just going to get them back a class later. Now, a better professor would give them back to you right away. That's not me. But I'll tell you what, someone shot a bullet through my bedroom window about 1.5 years ago. 45 caliber bullet right through my bedroom window. I live in a safe neighborhood. These guys were shooting at hot tubs. It was a gang ritual. And they were shooting at hot tubs, and I guess the idea was to drain them with 45 caliber bullets. Well, it's the middle of the night, and of course you miss. It went 10 feet from where I was sleeping. She was at the hospital on call. I'm sitting in bed, right? I'm sleeping, and I hear this just, have you ever heard a rifle shot? Boom. Woke up the next day. We couldn't even find the bullet. It had gone all the way through the house. And I thought to myself, that's 10 feet from where I was sleeping. I probably should have died. Gosh, I'm glad I saw those movies. I guess I'll put it to you like this. When she sees people dying in the hospital, they never say to her, Dr. Ciocchetti, I'm dying. Wish I would have worked a little harder. Dr. Ciocchetti, I'm dying of cancer, and damn it, I wish I would have had a little more money in my 401k. Wish I would have partied a little harder in college, Dr. Ciocchetti. I'm dying now. You know what they say to her? Dr. Ciocchetti, I'm dying, and I wish I would have been a better daughter, a better son, a better parent, a better friend, a better person. I just wish I would have been a little better now that I'm dying. So am I right, guys? I don't know. But until someone starts telling her those other things, I think I'm right. So my job comes forth. If the dean of the Daniels College of Business happened to walk down here, pulled up a chair. Now, you know we're ranked second in the country. I'm sure you've seen this, right behind Notre Dame. We'll never beat them because they have God on their side, right? So we can't beat Notre Dame for ethics. We're a secular institution. But number 2 is pretty good, so she comes and takes the seat, and she hears her ethics professor say that he puts his job forth. Think she's happy? No. But they know something about me. They know that my job comes forth. They know that if they take me too much away from her, I'd quit. So guess what, guys? They don't ask me. I want you to be good enough at your job so that you can put the right things first. I believe every single person in this room has a calling. It's a word that just means you're on this earth to do something with your life. Your job in these 4 years is to find it. My calling wasn't being a lawyer. My calling was this. I'm good at this. I'm bad at that. As much as I love my job and think I was born to do this, though, if I lost my job tomorrow, let me just tell you something, I would be sad. I would be really sad. But because it comes forth, I would move on. This is my wedding ring. This comes first. I lose this, and I'm done. Right? And I'm done. So what does that mean for my life? I always get teared up when you're here. When she's not here, I'm fine. I guess I'll never teach at Harvard, guys. Because Harvard's not going to take some guy that puts his job forth. Okay, I'm happy here. I turn down job offers all the time. You're not there yet, but there will come a time in your life where you have to choose between more money, fancier job, more stuff, or something that's first. And when you get to that point, I want to encourage you to consult this list that you made this weekend and choose wisely. Choose wisely. All right, so that's hard. Getting your priorities straight are hard. So what can you do every day? What can you do now, starting tonight, can you do to be a better person? Because I'm hoping you're with me, right? Listen, I'm not preaching at you. I've screwed up my life so many times you wouldn't believe it. I just happen to be an ethics professor tasked with this duty. I don't really want it. But it's because I'm an ethics professor, I'm on a soapbox, right? I'm up on here, and I have to just tell you the mistakes I made. Don't consider it preaching. I just don't want you to make the same mistakes. What can you do every single day to be better, right? I stole this idea of, there's a bunch of words I'm going to give you. I'm going to list off some words. And I stole this from Jimmy Valvano. Do you know Jimmy V? Famous basketball coach from North Carolina State. Jimmy V is awesome, and I was just at NC State on Monday, and it was so cool talking about Jimmy V in NC State. He's a hero there. Well, this guy was a charismatic coach. He won a national championship. This was a while ago in the 80s. Anyway, he's dying of cancer. He wins an ESPY award, which is like a Grammy for athletes, right? He goes on ESPN, the ESPYs. You've all seen this. He has to be helped up on stage because he's weak, right? They help him up on stage, and he gives this speech. Now, normally at the Grammys, right, you have 30 seconds and you're done. They start to dim the lights and play the music. You can YouTube this, right? Jimmy V gets on stage. He talked for 11 and a half minutes. So they kept flashing him this 30 seconds. Stop, dude, stop, right? And like a good Italian, any Italians in here? Where are you? Right on, right? Like a good Italian, Jimmy V goes, listen, I got tumors all over my body. I don't care about your cue card. And I was like, yes, just keep going, man. So what's ESPN going to do? Go to commercial? No way. They stick with them. Jimmy V says, listen, I'm dying, and my life has really come into perspective. And I guess what I've realized is every day, every person should do 3 things. That's what he said. He said, number 1 is to laugh. Number 2 is to think. And number 3 is to have your emotions stirred every day. Now, I took his list and I changed it, but let's go through his. Laugh makes my list, so we'll come back to it. But think. Do you think every day? Every single day, do you think? I guess what I would tell you is it's much more competitive now. When I got into law school, the average LSAT was a 162 out of 180 at Duke. That was the 90th percentile. The average LSAT today at Duke, 90th percentile, is 170. I never would have gotten in. I had it easier than you. But now that no one can get a job, everyone's going to grad school. There are no jobs. It's much more competitive. You can't afford to go a day without thinking. When people apply for a job in my office or whenever I used to run my own company, I would ask them these questions. What'd you think of the debt ceiling bill that just came out of Congress? I just wanted to see so I don't care what the answer they gave me was. I just want to know that they knew. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? I hope you do. If not, I've got 99 other applicants. If they pass that test, I would say, who are you going to vote for in the next election? And again, I don't care about the answer. I just want to know that we can have an intelligent discussion. Do you know? If not, I've got 98 other applicants. You can't afford to go a day without thinking. Every single day I want you to think he's right. And then he said, have your emotions stirred. That's what he said. Now, he said stirred to tears. He said you should cry every day. I don't want to cry every day. Do you? I mean, women, you might. Okay? I think what Jimmy V meant by that was every day you should get goosebumps. Do you? Now, women, you're good at this. I'm going to let you off the hook. We'll come back to you. Young men, at this point in the talk, I'm going to pick on you. You were just doing this already. At this point in the talk, young men go like this. Dude, no. Screw you. Goosebumps, I'm a man. Young men, let me talk to you for a second. We're completely losing our young men. Average GPA for a college female, 3.2. Average GPA for a college male, 2.8. You guys are behind. I went to a Future Business Leaders of America conference where 17 of the 18 executive team members were women. 17 of 18 and one guy just following them around. Luckiest guy ever, right? Guys, that's another reason to get into leadership. The ratio is 17-1 in your favor. I went to those women. I said, why can't you get any young men? They said, we can't get a young man to apply. If you look at my boot camp leaders, it's 80% women. I asked everybody equally. I could find maybe 5 guys. Young men, I know what's happened to you because it happened to me. My dad did this to me. All the men in my life did this to me. They said, Corey, be tough or you're not a man. Be tough. But when you're tough, school's not cool, right? You hang around guys, and guys, I know this is you. I know this is some of you out there. You come into my office and you say, Professor C, I want to try. But I hang around a group of guys that if I got good grades would disown me. I know some of you feel that way because I hear it all the time. My dad said to me, Corey, be tough. That's all that matters. And guys, let me say this to you. I think it's a prerequisite to be a man to be somewhat tough. I believe that. However, why is that mutually exclusive from also being sensitive, from also caring about school? See, a man who really gets life gets goosebumps. A man who understands life treats women with respect. Do you guys hear me? They treat women with respect. They come into class, they sit in the front row, and they plug in. Did you know that women are now 55% of DU's undergraduate population? Freshman class, 55%. It used to be the exact opposite. So young men, listen to me. All these young women are going to go take the jobs that you used to get. They're going to remember how you acted in college, and they're not going to hire you. Right, young women? All right, you're done. Go like this. Young women, let me talk to you. You still face a glass ceiling. My wife is one of 3 female surgeons in the North Denver area. In a city of what, 2 million people, there are 3 sort of up there? When she walks into the operating room, they say, when can I see the doctor? That's sexist. That's awful. She went to Cornell Medical School, right? But women, people just think you can't do it. She was at a job interview, and they said to her, when you're ready to get sterilized, we'll hire you. I teach employment law, right? That's the most illegal employment law question of all time. They've said, what are your plans for your ovaries? Men, they're never going to ask us about our plans to have kids, never. So women, they're going to ask you. You got to fight that much harder to break through that glass ceiling. Women, the studies show that you're equally likely to try illegal substances, but more likely to become addicted, to have an eating disorder. More likely, so you have to fight back against that. And women, the way you handle drama is awful. Guys go like this. Dude, stop being an idiot. Boom. We hit each other and we move on. You hold grudges. You gossip, right? You are really mean to each other. I was a faculty advisor for a sorority for 6 years, and I had to quit because I was losing all my hair and going insane. 100 women in one room is a lot. Am I stereotyping? Yes. Am I right? Yes. Right. So women, you have your crosses to bear. Men, we have our crosses to bear, I guess. But I guess what I would say to you is no one gets goosebumps about smoking pot. No one gets goosebumps about cheating on a test. You get goosebumps when you see a hero. You get goosebumps when you feel like you've made a difference in someone's life. You get goosebumps when you know that you're making the world a better place. See, when you get goosebumps, you focus on important things. So I took Jimmy V's list and I changed it. He's right. But you all are being called the lost generation. Did you know that? And it isn't a compliment. There was an editorial in the Wall Street Journal, and it said this about you. It said, you are lazy. You are apathetic. You are weak. You will live with your parents until you're 28. Some of you are like, yeah, man, that's the plan. My parents never would have let me live with them. Does that make you mad? Because that's not just some wacko blog. That's the Wall Street Journal calling your generation weak. What they're saying is you have Ferrari brains that you drive like scooters. If that's not making you mad right now, then what will? Raise your hand if you think your generation is lazy. And those of you who didn't, are you living under a rock? Like, remember that Geico commercial? What, are you living under a rock? I'm not saying you're lazy. I don't know you. But your generation has these awesome brains, and you can't motivate yourselves. So here's some words for you. Word number one is to hustle. Now, I grew up in a bad neighborhood, and in my neighborhood, that word had a different meaning, right? But if you look hustle up in the dictionary, what it means is try harder than you are currently trying now. Now, this is the one time in my speech that I'm going to let you off easy because it's not your fault. Adults in this room, it's our fault. We've done something to you called the self-esteem movement. Have you heard of this? What we've said to you is never let a kid lose. Never let a kid fall down. If a kid always wins and gets good grades, that kid will have self-esteem. But it's utterly failed because you guys don't have the type of self-esteem you should have as if it worked. Here, I'll give you an example. There was a worldwide math test given, and Americans ranked number 1 in self-esteem about math and 30th in math. So what good is that? You think you're the best, but you're 30th right behind Portugal? And if there was a lot of self-esteem rolling around this campus, then the women wouldn't dress the way they do in my classes. Now, you can call that sexist, but I've never had to tell a man to put a better shirt on or longer shorts. Never. And if you had a lot of self-esteem, you wouldn't need to be blackout drunk every weekend. I don't know a lot of people with high self-esteem that get blackout drunk. You wouldn't need a fake ID. See, if you have confidence and self-esteem, if you believe in yourself, you don't need that crap. If you don't have self-esteem, you need to dress like that. See, a woman who understands that she's worthy and she's good doesn't need to dress like that. And a person who has self-esteem and confidence doesn't need a fake ID. They know who they are. What we've done to you is every time you finished a race in field day, no matter what place you got a ribbon. Remember? Raise your hand if you went to a school where everyone got a ribbon. Okay, put it down. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. I went to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. A girl came up to me. She goes, I saw you on the internet. I'm glad you're coming. I brought you something. And I'm like, okay, awkward, right? Out of her purse, she pulls out this ribbon, and it's as big as her head. It said, 12th place, winner. I looked back at her, and I said, you're a loser. She goes, yeah. I said, how many people were in that race? And she goes, 12. And I said, well, in that case, you were the loser of all losers. She's like, well, yeah. I said, did you show this to your parents? She's like, I would never. I want everyone in this room to think about your mean grandpa. We all have a mean one and a nice one, right? So think about the mean one and ask yourself this question. What would your mean grandpa do if you brought him a 12th place ribbon? I'm just thinking of my dad. I got a mean Italian dad. I can just see it now. Dad, I got a ribbon at field day today. It's blue, it's big. Good, son, what place did you get? 12th. Boom. He'd have hit me. Then he would have said, well, how many people were in that race, son? Well, Dad, there were 12. Boom, right? He'd have taken that thing to the toilet and flushed it. I give speeches, though, to middle schools and high schools all the time. I'm going to Cherry Creek High School in November and speaking to all 5,000 students. I get standing ovations from the kids. And the teachers sit in the back of the room and go, boo, boo, because they've bought into this crap. But raise your hand if you don't want a 12th place ribbon. You guys don't want that, do you? Understand something. In my class, this is how it goes. Let's say I give 2 essays. Essay number 1, I'll get back. And my teaching philosophy is garbage in, garbage out, right? So I used to just do that. I used to just give 2 essays. And what would happen is I'd get the first essay in, and it would be garbage. So I'd take a red pen. Best day of my teaching career. I'd take a red pen, and I gave everybody an F. 80 Fs. And you guys have never, ever seen an F, right? So they looked at these papers when I handed them back, and they're flipping them upside down like, what the hell is this, an L? Like, you guys, what is this? And the kid's like, I think it's an F. Well, it can't be mine. But the papers were garbage. So I walked into class, and I said, oh, these papers are garbage, and if you give me more garbage papers, I'll give you more Fs. And so it's my fault, right? Every time I go over a quiz in class, it's my fault. The questions are tricky, and it's my fault. Okay, so I got the next set of essays back, and I was ready to give more Fs. But I'm reading these papers, and they're beautiful, publishable. I took my red pen. I gave every single student an A. I walked back into class, and I said, let me get this straight. Y'all can get an A anytime you want. It just takes an F to motivate you. My students looked right back at me and said, "That's right, Professor C, because at that point we'll have a C and we'll pass." That should break your heart. What are you guys saying to me when you say that? What you're saying is, "Professor C, my whole life I got a ribbon just for finishing, right? So just give me my C and I can move on to my marketing class." But I guess what I would say to you is this: do you think you can walk into your first job and give a C effort? Do you think? Do you know dodgeball is banned across Colorado? Banned dodgeball because they say it's warlike. I want you to think of war. Everyone in this room, just pause, close your eyes right now and think of war. Okay? Make sure I'm on time. Do you think Tripoli, right? You think Islamabad. Do you think a bunch of 8th graders in red shorts with a dodgeball when you think of war? There's nothing wrong with dodgeball, but you can't play because someone might get hurt. I read a front page article of the New York Times. These kids couldn't jump rope, right? So the teachers walked up to them, took all the jump ropes away, and now the kids go like this without a jump rope because you can't miss if you don't have one. See what we've done to your generation? I want to encourage you to hustle every day. Next time you walk into your professor's class on Monday, I want you to give a damn. I want you to try harder than you were currently trying because that is the only way that you will get and keep the job of your dreams. See, as soon as I screw up, man, I lose all my credibility. Once I lose that, I might as well not teach. You can't afford that luxury. Everything has to try to be an A or a B. Don't settle for those C's and D's just to get through. The second word is to fight for something that matters. If I pulled you aside after this lecture and said, "Excuse me, what do you fight for?" what would you tell me? Would you be able to give me an answer? Or would you just look back at me? It's really hard to get people in your generation to fight for something. It's really hard. Did you know that fewer than 50% of Americans vote? Everybody complains. Guess who votes the least in this country? Guess who votes the most? My grandma. So who are politicians going to favor, do you think? My grandma. Can you name one bill that's come out of Congress in the last 10 years that has helped you? Can you think of anything that has specifically helped you? No, it screws you, and it helps my grandma. Every single bill, but you don't vote. Do our politicians have a moral obligation to represent your interests? Yes, they do. Will they if you don't vote? No, they're not incentivized. The study I read was 10% of us will act ethically all the time. 10% of us will never act ethically, and the other 80% of us will act ethically only if incentivized. Which is why if I leave the room during my midterm, people cheat. If I stay in the room, they don't. Chances are you fall in that 80% group, right? So until we figure out how to incentivize you to fight for something, you won't. We got to move everybody into that top 10% group, which is what we did with those little Real Rabbits cups that you have. Are you filling those up? Because let me tell you something. That's something to fight for. Every time you do something good, you put a dime in the cup. Every time you see a friend doing something good, you tell them to put a dime in the cup and you tell them why. And at the end of the quarter, we've agreed that we'll add up all these dimes and we'll give them to inner city schools. Well, guess what, guys? I've done this for 3 quarters now, and my classes have raised $4,000 for inner city schools in dimes. How cool is that? So guess what we do with that money? We call these kids to DU. They come like today. Studies show that if you bring an inner city kid to a college campus, that kid is 90% more likely to go to college. Maybe not here, maybe at Front Range Community College, but who cares? Now that kid has a chance because of your dimes, because of your good deeds. So these kids come in, they get to talk to our students, they'll get to talk to you, right? And here's the questions, the type of questions they ask. "We don't know you, right?" And my students would say, "No." "Why are you giving us money?" And I'm like, "Yes," because that's an awesome learning opportunity. What's the lesson there? You don't have to know someone to help them. So we did that with dimes. Do you know what most of these kids do with this money? These inner city poor kids, you know what they do? They take the money and they donate it to poorer kids to buy bikes. These poor kids take the money that we generated with good deeds and give it to poor kids. And do you see what you've done with dimes? So I want you to reconsider how often you take that cup with you. Let's do a good thing. Let's raise some money for these kids, because that's leaving a legacy, isn't it? That's the legacy that you walk out of these doors leaving, and you potentially save someone's life. I guarantee you, if I didn't get into DU, I would probably be dead or in jail. I don't know where I would be. But for someone taking a look at my application and letting me in, I wouldn't be here. But for our dimes and our good deeds, who knows? So what do you fight for? The third word is to listen. How many ears does a typical person have? 2. You guys are good. Right on. How many mouths? Just 1. Which means you should listen at a ratio of 2 to 1 that you speak. Do you? Or do you just speak? Raise your hand if this week you said thank you to a professor. That's better than most groups. Do you all think I'm a better professor when you say thank you? Do you think I'm a better speaker when you come up and say thank you? My classes like me. They like me fine. Generally, though, everybody just leaves. They walk right by me. I could have taught the best class ever, and generally, people just walk right by me. Not always. Some people will say thanks. Most people just leave. 4 years ago, I had Kyle Lewis in class. Do you know Kyle? He's a basketball team. He just graduated. Kyle's a really neat kind of kid. You should try to get to know him. After every class, everyone else would just leave. And Kyle would walk up to me as hard as he could. Good job, Professor C. Boom. And he'd hit me really hard in the back. So by the 20th class, he was coming up, and I saw him, and I was like, ha-ha. Missed me. I said, Kyle, why do you keep hitting me? You want to be a lawyer? He's like, hell no, man. I'm like, why are you hitting me, Kyle? He's, I'm in your class because it's required, Professor C. I'm like, why are you hitting me, Kyle? He said, listen, man, that's the way an 18-year-old guy says thank you, so I'm listening. And he left. That was 4 years ago. I remember one student from that class. Who is it? Kyle Lewis. I'm going to write one letter of recommendation for that class for one kid, and it's going to go to Kyle Lewis. Be the best recommendation I've ever written. I've said Kyle Lewis's name to 1 million people. How long do you think it took Kyle Lewis to say thank you to me every day? 5 seconds. Hit me and he'd leave. If your professors are no good, then don't thank them. If your professors are good, walk up there and thank them. Try this approach. Walk into class. Make a deal with everybody in class that you're just going to shut your laptops and listen. And watch that professor walk in and faint. It's a vicious cycle, isn't it? I walk into class and I see 40 laptops. Do you think I'm going to care? No. So my lecture's going to suck. So now you won't care and you want to be on Facebook. But see, professors, we're too stubborn. We won't change. You have to do that. So walk into class, make a deal, and shut your computers and just listen for a change. My students hate that I don't allow laptops in class. They hate it until the end of the quarter when they walk up to me and say, dang it, Professor C, that was cool. I actually learned something. Well, yeah, because you had to listen to me. For once, you had to listen. Do you know it costs like $400 every time you walk into a classroom? Why would you walk in there with your computer open? What a waste. Some of the most important classes that I blew off in college would have helped me so much when I ran my business. I blew off all my accounting classes because I just didn't like accounting. When I ran my own business, it was all accounting. And I paid thousands of dollars to my accountant that I could have saved. Finance classes, I wish now I would have paid more attention in my finance classes so I can invest some of the money that I'm now making with some intelligence instead of just going on there and following, what Warren Buffett, what is he doing? My management, my market, the world is econ, guys. The world is econ, supply and demand. And I sat there and I just blew the class off. I look back now and I say, if I could do it over, I would have paid attention because dang it, I sat in there for 10 weeks. If you're going to sit somewhere, you might as well listen. The studies show that the higher you move up in any organization, the more crucial it becomes to listen. The studies also show that once you get to the top, you stop listening. So don't let that happen. Last word is to laugh. You should laugh every day. I mean, I think so, right? But we take ourselves way too seriously, don't we? The world is a serious place. I was at the city of Aurora yesterday morning, 8 a.m. The whole city was there, the city government. There was a battalion chief of the fire department. He came up to me afterwards. He had this thing in his ear. He was taking calls, and he came up to me and said, Corey, while you were talking about life being hard, here's what happened. He said there was a dead body in an apartment. I had to send my guys. He said a guy cut his hand off with a chainsaw, and I had to send a fire truck. And he said, right now, I just found out that an elementary school's on fire. And I'm sitting there like, dang, life's really hard, guys. So if we never laugh, we'll go crazy. But we take ourselves so seriously. I did this just the other day. I speak about this all over the country, and I do it myself. I went to the airport. I went to TSA. I walked up, and it was a long line, and I got to the front, and I pulled out my license. And on my license, I'm smiling with teeth. Ever smiled with teeth, like a nice big with teeth smile? Let me see everybody's. There you go, Matt. That looks good. And he looked at my license, where I'm smiling big. And he looked at me, scowling. And he looked back at my license where I'm smiling big, and he looked back at me, scowling, and he goes, "Mr. Ciocchetti, those were happier times." And I'm like, dang, not really. As a matter of fact, I'm sure I'm happier now. He's like, "What's wrong?" And I just wanted to pass. I needed to get to my gate, right? But you don't pass unless you answer the questions. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. I guess I just don't know. He's like, "No, seriously, what's wrong?" He goes, "What do you have to frown about?" And that hit me like a ton of bricks. You guys, I have nothing to frown about, do you? I have nothing. Some of my days are better than others, but I have nothing in the world that I should scowl about, do you? When I smile at people, let's say I pick 20 people to smile at. I count how many smile back at me. Generally, it's 3 out of 20. If someone has the decency to look at you and smile, the least you could do is smile back. But we're taking ourselves so seriously, and I was doing it myself. So what I want you to do is think about this. I woke up one morning, and on my desk were 2 studies, medical studies. Medical study number 1 said, those that laugh at themselves, not at others, keep that in mind as I move on, at yourself, live longer, healthier, happier lives. That seems true, doesn't it? The second study, these were placed on my desk by my wife, was a fart study. So I picked the thing up. I'm like, I don't want to read a fart study. What in the world? So I smelled it. I don't know why. I thought she might have farted on it. She didn't, so I read it. It said the average person farts 14 times a day. And these guys are like, "Yeah, man, I just farted now." Like, right on. Just farted now. I was with these hedge fund guys, and this guy goes, "I'm twice the man you are." And I'm like, right on. If you didn't get it, 28, just double it, right? But women, you fart too. Believe me, all these women are like, "Not me." Yes, it is. So it's 6 o'clock right now. You probably farted 10 times today. Probably a couple of times in this room. You have 4 more to go. I mean, then you'll hit your average, right? So how could you sit in this room and fart and not laugh at my jokes? If you haven't laughed once or smiled once during this talk, you're taking yourself way too seriously. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think back to the dumbest thing you've ever done. What's the dumbest thing you've ever done? And ask yourself this question. How can I ever take myself seriously ever again? Here's mine. I have 2. I ironed my own neck. Before you judge me, I had a suit on, I had a tie on, I was looking really good going to a job interview. Okay, but there was a wrinkle in my collar and it was too late. I didn't have time to take my shirt off. So I plugged the iron in. And I was just going to get it, right? I just got it, took the iron, took it to my collar. I was doing fine, right? Until my phone, like, I got a text message. And is yours on, like, super electroshock vibrate, right? So it goes, and I went, looked like I tried to kill myself. So I took a towel, I put it on my artery, and I drove in. Tabor Center downtown. Went up to like the 20th floor. I got off the elevator. The partner's there to meet me, shakes my hand. "Hey, Corey, how you doing? Nice to meet you." I'm like, "Hi." He said, "What'd you do this morning? Try to kill yourself?" I'm like, dang, my interview just started like that, right? But I can't tell him the truth. "Kill myself, sir? No, that would have been stupid. I ironed myself this morning." I make really good decisions like that all the time. Please hire me for your mergers and acquisitions team, right? I'll never get you sued. I can't say that. So I looked back at him. I had all these lies. Have you ever done this? You have all these lies stored up. And I said, "Sir, no, this is just acne." So that was a good lie. I thought, that's an awesome lie. He looks back at me and he goes, "Well, then why is it bleeding?" Have you ever run out of lies? Like you have enough lies ready to go and you finally run out? I was out. I looked at him and I said, I don't know. And then about 3 years ago, I'm pulling out of campus, and it's University and I-25. Do you know this intersection? Getting on I-25 north, and it's a 2-lane turn. I'm pulling out. It's like middle of November. It's cold. It's dark. I'm in my car. I'm first in line at this light, and there's cars all around me. We're all ready to turn. I'm on the phone with my wife, right? And it's just sort of a bad day anyway. I look up at my steering wheel, and there's a wasp in my car. Ever had a bee in your car? Worst day of your life, believe me. So I'm scared of bees. Anyone here scared of bees? Any guys? Come on, guys. Right on. All right, good. Thank you. Are you allergic? Yeah, I'm just scared of them. I'm just a wimp, right? I said, "Honey, oh my God, there's a bee in my car and he's going to kill me." Aren't they supposed to die and come back to life in March? I was never very good at science. She says, "Calm down." My wife says this to me all the time. Just calm down, right? Just roll down your window and knock it out with your hand. Would you do that? There's no way in hell. And I'm like, "No." She goes, "You know what then? I can't help you." Click. Huh, didn't you? I just took my ring off, told you how much I love her. She hung up on me. I don't need her. I went to law school. So I deduced a plan. I went here, I rolled down my window. I looked around my car for a weapon. Then I realized something. I'm not in North Carolina anymore. See, in North Carolina, any of you from the South, y'all have weapons. In Denver, we don't. So I found my wallet, picked up my wallet, and I was just going to nudge the thing out, just nudge it out, just like this, right? I felt like I had Parkinson's. I was like, so I think I nicked it. I don't know, but it was now alert. And I knew I have one more chance at this or I'm going to die. And by the way, it's all happening really fast. Like when I ironed my neck, it happened fast. Like the dumbest thing you ever did happens fast, right? If it took you like 3 days, you have a problem. You shouldn't be here at DU. So I took my wallet. I knew I had one more chance at this. Hard as I could, I went like this. And I let go. And I threw my wallet out my car window. See, apparently you're supposed to hold on. So boom, I'm looking like this. Out of my peripheral vision, I see the light turn green. So I used my business degree, right? I did a cost-benefit analysis. Do I drive on and leave it as if it never happened? A. B, do I get out of my car and get it? Well, B, the answer is B, right? Remember, I don't have any money in there, but I got my license where I'm smiling with teeth, and I have some credit cards. So I got out of my car. Now keep in mind, these people could go because they were unobstructed. But they're like, let's see what the idiot does next. Nobody moved. So I got out of my car. What's the first thing you do when someone gets out of his car at an intersection? Yeah, everyone's like, screw you, man, idiot. And I'm like, no, screw you. Now keep in mind, I'm the ethics professor and I'm a block and a half from campus. I'm setting a wonderful example, right? So I get out of my car. I run across University Boulevard, and as I pick the thing up, I feel something in my back, just like some of you in yoga out there, right? It was awkward. And so I got the thing and I went like this, I sit down in my car, right? The light is now red. Everyone around me is just looking at me. My windows are tinted, but not enough. I lock my doors just as if that would help. I look up at my steering wheel, and the bee is still in there. Right where he was. And then he just flew out the window. Bye-bye. How can I ever take myself seriously again? So I want you to hold me accountable. If you ever see me scowling around the halls of this building, I want you to walk up to me and say, you ironed your neck, man. And you threw your wallet out the window of your car. Smile. Every day we should smile. So let's conclude. Why do all this? Why do we have you at an ethics boot camp? Because when you're 20 years old, you think every weekend is your last, right? As if this is your last Friday ever. You don't want to be here because you might never have another Friday. You guys will have plenty of Fridays. You'll have plenty of Saturdays. Why are you here? At Daniels, our mission is this: to make you think about who you are as a person so that you go make the world a better place. And if we succeed at the end of this weekend, if only one of you wakes up one morning and your boss tells you to fudge a number on an accounting statement and you remember this weekend and you don't. If your boss asks you to lie for a client and you remember this weekend and you don't, then we've succeeded. We've completely succeeded. I think if you do some of these things I'm asking you to do, I think you'll wake up happier in the morning. You know what else, though? You have a moral obligation to pay it forward to the people who aren't here. You have a moral obligation to tell people what it means to have character. My wife has me doing P90X. Do you know this? And part of it is yoga. That's why I came up with that. Any guys in here to really do yoga, like seriously? It's a couple of us. We're not made that way, right, guys? It's not right. So I'm sitting here doing P90X yoga, and I'm 45 minutes into this stupid thing, and I'm sweating like crazy, and I feel my ACL like tearing, and I'm standing like this. He's like, now touch your toes. And I'm like, I'll die. He's like, not only touch your toes, I want you to touch your toes, lift your hand in the air, and moan, whatever you do in yoga, right? And I'm like, I can't do it. I want to quit. And Tony Horton in the video just goes, no one ever said this would be easy. He could have just inserted Corey, And I thought, well, that's right. As a matter of fact, when I put this DVD in, it said, this will kill you. Unless you're Lance Armstrong, P90X will kill you. Let me ask you this. When did we ever come under this false impression that being a good person would be easy? That living a moral life would somehow be easy, that somehow not cheating on a test when it's so easy, that making the right decision would come easy to us. Guys, it doesn't. I get it. I totally get it. But I guess I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts. I believe that the future prosperity of this country is directly proportional to the character and integrity of its current citizens. Do you? If you want a better life for your kids, you need to be a better person now. If you've ever been on a cruise or been on a boat, it takes a long time to turn a cruise ship around. It's the same with our country and the status of our country. It takes a long time to turn this thing around. If you look at the garbage that's on TV and the garbage that we read and see every day, it's going to take a long time to turn that around. And so we have to start now if you care at all about making a better country for your kids. And then we have to do it as a team. I know you hate group projects. I know you hate them. Your generation hates them. But remember this, guys. Life is a group project. My marriage is a group project between 1 and 2. Your family is a group project. Your sorority, your fraternity, your debate team, it's all just one big group project. And you can tweet this. If you suck in groups, you will suck in life. So when I put you in a team, it's not to kill you. It's not to ruin your life, because life's one big team. So here's an African proverb, and I'll leave you on this note, because if we don't do this together, we're done. It's like Malcolm Gladwell said, we have to find a tipping point, and that's not 51%. A tipping point is enough people to care so that everybody else cares. But we can't find a tipping point. The reason I quit mentoring that sorority is I couldn't get enough people to care. I was really close, but I couldn't get a tipping point. At Daniels, I think we're really close to finding that tipping point, to being good, to changing these statistics. But unless we do it together, we're doomed to fail. We're going to run out of juice. And I felt myself so many days running out of juice, which is why watching you guys care so much out there just rejuvenated me. You just recharged my batteries by sitting in here and listening to me and wearing your little red shirts and caring. You have no idea what you've done for me. You don't even know. Okay, so here's an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. Okay, thank you guys.